So I've upgraded from the Canon R5 to the Canon R5 Mark II. I pre-ordered this pretty much on announcement day and went to go pick it up when it launched in Canada in July. The camera was a huge improvement as far as autofocus, just the general speed of the camera booted up way faster, and a couple other functionality changes that really helped improve my workflow. Now, one of my main frustrations, which I find not a lot of people are talking about, are the issue with the batteries. Canon has had a variety of batteries, all using the same form factor over the years. So I had a Canon 7D Mark II, which used these LPE6N batteries. Now, eventually they upgraded and moved towards a more powerful LPE6NH. This allowed for more output, and when the Canon R5 was launched, it pretty much came with these bad boys. These batteries work on the legacy cameras and the new ones, so it was pretty handy having a variety of new batteries. I ended up picking about 3 of these up, and I already owned 4 of the legacy batteries. Functionality didn't really change, but the R5 did have the increased burst mode. Without that, you were locked to a slower shutter speed if you were trying to use the highest burst photos that you could on the R5. Fine. Now, moving to the Canon R5 Mark II, they've released yet again another battery. It is the LPE6P. It's just marginally more powerful. It's probably got the ability to output more power as required for the gear to work. Now, the frustration is, oh hey, a new set of batteries to pick up. Now, from experience, not a big deal. Maybe I can't shoot as fast a speed, but wait a minute. If you don't use the new batteries, it actually locks out a lot of basic functionality. For starters, the networking functionality doesn't work, some of the frame rates for video, and a couple other features that have yet to be discovered. Now, a lot of the reviewers who were sent the camera were also sent the new batteries, so they probably didn't notice that a lot of functionality actually wasn't available unless you used the new battery. Now, let me show you on the camera what's not available. One of my frustrations is that these old batteries lose a lot of functionality. Turning the camera on, you get a message right away, movie recording, network functions, and some accessories won't work with this battery. Going into the menu, we can take a look at what is not included now. So in 4K, we have a variety of modes, that's fine. But if we look at the frame rates, I can only film in 29.97 frames. So you're stuck at 30 frames per second, regardless of if you're in 1080p or in 4K. This is a big contrast to the R5, where you had a lot of different functionality, 60 frames, 24, and 120 frames. So those are all not available on the older batteries. Not only that, but again, the Wi-Fi is now not available. Now, this might not seem like a big deal, but for someone like myself that does a lot of my actual work at gigs and events, having the ability to Wi-Fi into my camera to pull some selects is pretty important. These batteries go for about $120 Canadian. Again, not the end of the world. I'll probably end up picking up another 2. Now, I pre-ordered them pretty much right away. Now, my delivery date went from September to now mid-October, and we're rolling up to the date that these batteries are supposed to be coming, but I've yet to get them. Now, in the US, you can readily get them even at mom-and-pop camera stores. So from some of the major stores in Canada, these batteries are basically unavailable and unobtainable. Now, a store like B&H actually doesn't ship these batteries to Canada for whatever reason. So, outside of driving down to the US to pick up some batteries, we're pretty much SOL on the Canadian side in getting our hands on these batteries. Now, if you're a professional and you're trying to get the most out of your camera, going through a shoot through a day, you're probably going to run through more than one battery. So that's where my frustration lies. I've talked to some friends that do YouTube, and they can barely make it through a shoot on one battery. So as Canadian photographers, this can get really frustrating. I've talked to some friends that are in other countries like the UK and Australia, and they've equally had issues with the battery supply. So There's been a lot of frustration with new Canon R5 Mark II users just trying to get their hands on these new batteries to optimize what their camera can do. Have you gotten your hands on a Canon R5? Have you had any issues getting your hands on the batteries? Now, I have a trip coming up to Austin, Texas next month, and I think I'm just going to have to resort with buying some batteries on the US side and bringing them home, because at this point, I'm not sure when we're going to get them. Now, there was an event in Canon headquarters recently where me and some friends ended up going over there and talking to some of the Canon reps and expressed our concern over the batteries. They said that the batteries are on their way and they're slowly starting to supply. Now, I understand that, but at the same time, why is it more than 2 to 3 months after the launch of a camera that we have to wait to get an additional battery? Until then, I will be using these old batteries, and for photography, no issue. But again, if I'm trying to pull those photos onto my phone or iPad for some quick use and hand over to a marketing team that I'm working for, I can't do that on the R5 Mark II when my battery dies. So at the end of a shoot, I'm going to have some issues. But until then, hopefully I get my hands on some batteries, and hopefully you do too. Let me know in the comments, have you had any issues? Have you had something similar happen with another brand? I'm really curious. Anyway, see you in the next one.